everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Today I want to talk about my three favorite fragrances of all time. That is Insolence by Guerlain, El de Lolita by Lolita Lempicka, and finally Kelly Kalesh by Hermes. I've been a perfume collector for quite a few years now, and I would say these are my top three fragrances. So I want to start off by talking about this beauty right here. This is Insolence by Guerlain. This is of course the newer bottle that came out not too long ago. They have beautiful vintage bottles and I'll show it right here. So Guerlain has a beautiful rich history that dates back to 1828 in Paris. The house was founded by Pierre-François Guerlain and has been owned by the entire family until 1994 when it was bought by LVMH. So there's actually two versions of this perfume, the Eau de Parfum and the Eau de Toilette, and I much prefer the Eau de Parfum. This is my very first violet fragrance that I fell in love with. I find violet to be quite a challenging note. But this violet is just beautiful. It's a little bit sugared, which I prefer, and I'll tell you a little bit about the notes right now. So the notes are as following: violet, powdery notes, iris, and red berries. It's a very simple formula, but when you smell it, it actually smells much more complex. Now I was hoping to talk a little bit about the vibe of the perfume. So I find this to be a very sophisticated perfume. I love the powderiness of the iris and the extra added powdery notes. The violet is sweet and sugared, like I told you. And there's a little hint of the red berries that come through, making it a floral, fruity fragrance. This is very much sophisticated. I wouldn't recommend this for anyone under like 25 years old personally. One of my favorite YouTubers, I used to watch perfume reviews back in the day, and they described this fragrance as a forest full of fairies that are dropping sugared fairy dust all over the violet flowers. And I think that's a beautiful description of this fragrance. So I would say you get a lot of value for this fragrance. I purchased mine for about $130 at the Bay. A lot of retailers do carry it, including Fragrance Spy, it's usually sold out, or Fragrance Net. And this perfume, I'm a very conservative perfume wearer. I don't spray a lot, although my boyfriend is trying to change that. I get about 5 to 6 hours of wear time. So that is a fairly decent amount of time. And of course you can always top up throughout the rest of the day. So I want to mention it was very hard to choose my favorite Guerlain. I have a lot of favorites. I tried quite a few of them, either with decants or vials I personally own, or of course just going to the stores and smelling them. It was very difficult to choose Insolence as my very favorite Guerlain, but even though it was a newer release, I think it was released in 2017, it is definitely my favorite. If I think of just the notes that are my favorite that are in this fragrance and how it makes me feel beautiful. It just has that feminine quality to it, which I really love. I do know some males that have worn this perfume. Of course, I think gendering in fragrance is a lie. We can wear men's or women marketed perfume, but I just think that the essence of the femininity in this perfume is what really draws me to it, and it's why it's my favorite. Alright, so the next fragrance I'd love to talk about, it might actually be my favorite fragrance out of the three that I'm talking about today. I just have a lot of history with it, and when I first smelled it, it blew me away. It's El de Lolita by Lolita Lempicka. So this fragrance was launched in 2006, and the perfumer is the master Maurice Roussel. He's created a lot of beautiful fragrances. I'll show some of them here. What I love about this fragrance the most is that it is gourmand. I am a gourmand lover, although I'm trying to diverse and find some other types of fragrances such as more chyper, green fragrances. But this was my very first gourmand, I would say. And what I love most about it is the cinnamon note. I love cinnamon in baking and I love just smelling cinnamon on its own. So that cinnamon note really does it for me. So on the top we have bitter orange and bergamot. So we have a beautiful citrus splurge that comes at the top. Then we have a middle notes of cinnamon, immortelle, and musk. And finally the base notes are vanilla, tonka bean, and sandalwood. So I do really love the complexity of this fragrance. What I smell the most are the orange, the bitter orange at the beginning, then the burst of cinnamon spiciness to warm everything up, and then the creaminess of the sandalwood at the base along with the vanilla. It's a beautiful, rounded, well-rounded fragrance. So I want to mention that this is actually discontinued, so it is kind of hard to find. I found a roller ball on eBay, and then I found this bottle here as well as the mini on Kijiji, which is like a Facebook marketplace in a sense. So unfortunately it is hard to find and it can be quite expensive. But when you compare it to other fragrances, which a lot of people in the fragrance community compare it to, such as Lyra or even Love and Crime by Exidolo, I think it's even better than those two, especially since it's the very first one that came out. It's the original. So I just love that it has that authenticity. It has that originality. Nothing else was like it when it came onto the market back in 2006, and I really value that. Now I want to talk a little bit about scent memories. So how our brain works is that we can attach smell to various memories from our history. So I have a lot of scent memories with this beautiful fragrance. This is when I was working at the National Gallery of Canada. I was in school for art history. I felt like I was in my prime in a sense of how my life was coming together. So I have a lot of happy memories, and I think that also adds to why this is my favorite fragrance. Now I want to talk a little bit about the vibe of this fragrance. What I really love about it is it has this youthfulness. This is definitely appropriate for, I think, all age ranges. Someone who's in their 60s or 70s, all the way down to someone who's in their teenagehood. It has a youthfulness, but it depends on what note you focus on. I think the vanilla can be a bit youthful, but with the cinnamon, it can make it a little bit more sophisticated and mature. It just is a bit energizing with those citrus notes and just the combination of it all together. If you're looking for something very unique that is not mass appealing necessarily, or that not everyone is going to be wearing, I would definitely consider picking up this perfume. So I tested the longevity of this fragrance just recently, and it lasts about 5 hours with a few sprays. It obviously has an intimate dry down in the 5th hour, so you smell mostly the vanilla, a little bit of the sandalwood, and the cinnamon, of course. But for a unique scent like this, I just think it would be worth it to still invest in finding a bottle. Lolita Olympica is known as more of a cheapie house. A lot of their fragrances are discontinued, at least the original formulations. But you can still find this, like I said, on eBay or a marketplace. And I definitely feel it's worth to invest in this if you want something unique and original in your collection. So the last fragrance I was hoping to talk about today is Kelly Kalesh by Hermes. This was created in 2007 by Jean-Claude Elena. So I'll start by talking about the notes. Again, this is from Fragrantica. In the top we have a burst of grapefruit, narcissus, and lily of the valley. Middle notes are rose, mimosa, and tuberose, and the base notes are leather and iris. So Kelly Kalesh is actually a flanker, and flanker means it's based on the original perfume. It was released after the original. This came out quite a few years after the original, Kalesh, which was created by Guy Robert in 1961. That one's way more aldehydic. It's a little bit green, it's woody, it's very complex fragrance. I much prefer this one, and I think similarly to Insolence, it really has that feminine quality to it. It's definitely a pretty perfume. Now, similar to Guerlain, Hermes has a rich history with luxury goods and perfumery. I've tried and owned quite a few Hermes fragrances. I've tested all the Jardin line. I own Jour d'Hermes along with many others. And this is still my favorite, not only because I have a lot of scent memories attached to it, but it's just a very well-created fragrance. Now, another reason why this is in my top 3 is that it's very chic and it's really well blended. It's hard to pick up any of the specific notes in it. For example, I don't smell any mimosa or narcissus or even tuberose. It's just a beautiful cloud of floral, musky, and kind of smoky goodness. It's so chic. And it smells extremely expensive. So this perfume lasts for a moderate amount of time, I would say about 4 hours. You can purchase it on places like Fragrance Nut for about $120 plus shipping, of course. So for 100 milliliters. So that is a really good deal in my opinion, especially since it smells so sophisticated and chic. And I should mention, of course, that this is the eau de toilette. They do have an eau de parfum version, which I have never smelled. So I'm basing all of this information on the eau de toilette. All right, so those are my 3 favorite fragrances of all time. I find that they're very accessible. I do love niche perfumery, but I wouldn't say this is necessarily niche. You don't need to have an expert nose to appreciate these fragrances. If you have any questions about perfumery, I love talking to people about fragrances. If you need recommendations, tell me what your favorite notes are in the comments and I can recommend you some fragrances for fun. If you have any questions about any other perfumes that you might be considering buying, please let me know. I love hearing about what other people are buying. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.